So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Welcome to this edition of our STARS webinars. I'm Tony Schönenberger. I'm the co-founder and executive chairman of STARS. Today, we have the privilege to talk to Yin Roberts. Yin, welcome. Good to have you on this webinar.
Thank you, Tony. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yin has served as CTO of Buhler since 2011. He is one of the masterminds behind the company's digital transformation and innovation culture. Previously, Yin worked for Nestle. Yin is also the co-founder and president of the Startup Accelerator Mass Challenge Switzerland. And I should also mention, Yin, you just told me that you're just recovering from Corona. So thank you very much for joining this session.
It's okay.
We have approximately 30 minutes to discuss with Yin. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature below to type in your questions. And I'd like to encourage you to do it as quickly as possible because we are running out of time very fast. So let's start. Buhler is a world leader in the food and mobility business. Could you please describe the company a little bit in a few words?
Certainly. So Buhler is about a 3 billion size company. We're 162 years old. We're 100% family owned. And as you said, we serve food, but we provide the technology to enable food production. And we serve what we call advanced materials, which includes automotive, which is principally driving the transition to electromobility. The family holds us to two things, which I think is important. The first is that we must be the innovation leaders in our industry. So we're not allowed to invest less than 5% of turnover in innovation. And the second thing is that we must manage the company with the mindset of a family. So a family thinks on behalf of the next generation. So we have a long-term and innovation-driven view.
Generally speaking, Yin, what disruption did you not really expect in the last couple of years? What did surprise you?
I think what surprised me was, the pandemic also, it took everybody by surprise, but it was the impact on the pandemic on two things. I think the first one was the massive acceleration of digital adoption. We went from situations where companies were, screaming about data and, very concerned about how data was shared, to suddenly sharing data as part of normal life because you had to do it in order to run your company and in order to run your business during the pandemic. So that was a mind shift change in the way digital was accepted. And I think that's helped us as well with our digital portfolio and services. The second thing within the pandemic was very much the structural changes in the market that were accelerated. And by that, I mean this sudden extraordinary shift towards alternative or sustainable protein sources away from meat that was clearly accelerated during the pandemic as people began to think more about nature and their role in society. And I expect that this caused a little bit of over-acceleration and a spike, but these changes are with us to stay. And that's kicked off a whole shift and transition in the food system.
Let's talk a little bit about innovation. How does it, just generally speaking, how does it happen? How important are networks? How important is are startups actually, universities, your network?
Mm-hmm. So I think like all companies, look, we have a 5-year innovation strategy and we have a 10-year view on the trends that we think are going to be most dominant in technology. I think our sources for innovation and discussion are multifold. I think the first one would be customers. We have massive customer engagement. We work with all our customers on their strategy and our strategy, which gives us a huge knowledge base. We work closely with startups, as you said. To understand what's happening with startups to be embedded in the startup ecosystem is a tremendous market sensing tool. So it's not only about insourcing technology, it's understanding the problems that people think are important to solve. And this we get very strongly, be it from our role with Mass Challenge or with other startup accelerators and VCs that we work with around the world. Academia is very important to us because when we see these 10-year horizon kind of challenges, we need to build core knowledge. So if you think about plant-based protein, we put extrusion lines into ETH in Zurich in 2012, and we built a program around creating meat replacements from there with multiple companies. So in 2018, when it took off, we were ready and we had great technology and deep know-how. So I think that's very important for us. We also have an internal innovation approach modeled on kind of the Mass Challenge approach, where we have up to 5,500 of our 12,500 employees actually engage in innovation, an innovation competition across the whole company, where we in the end accelerate 8 teams, and their innovation ideas have to be aligned to our mission. How do we reduce energy waste and water consumption in our customers' value chains by 50%? And how do you create business by doing that? We accelerate the 8 ideas, and then we implement them. The good ones come to the executive board and we implement them. So we have a combination of external ecosystem, internal ecosystem, short term with, say, suppliers, and mid-term with our core R&D teams, and then long-term with the front-end investigation and startups and academia.
Well, Buhler is really famous for its innovation culture. What does the innovation campus play a role? What role does it play?
Look, I think the campus is really important. I mean, if you look, and we have multiple of these around the world now as we build up, it embodies the spirit of what we try and do with innovation. I mean, it's all about collaboration. It's about bringing all the functions of the company together. If you go to Stanford and the D School, they talk about the demilitarized zone. The demilitarized zone is where you can all go freely and exchange, because they struggled that scientists and engineers wouldn't speak to each other. Well, if you think in a company, you have multiple functions, personalities with different incentives, we need to bring them safely together. In addition, we bring in academic partners. We give entry to startups. So startups that can benefit from being there can come and just reside and sit with the innovation teams. We bring innovation teams from all our businesses into one space, particularly those that will benefit from platform capabilities like digital. And then we have customers coming through. We have a couple of thousand customers a year come through this space, and anybody can interact with them and learn from them. And then, of course, we have all our pilot facilities where customers can come and run trials, and we bring startups in, they run trials. And this is where we learn together. So this is really, it's an embodiment of the culture that we want to have throughout the company.
Great idea, yes. What kind of innovation or what kind of products are to be expected in the near term? You mentioned cultured foods or plant-based meat, etc. Is that something, or do you have any other products?
Look, I mean, I think plant-based meat is clearly still growing. We've been at the forefront of that. I guess we're the biggest, I would say, fair to say we're the #1 supplier of the shaping forming technologies. We will see more complete solutions coming that go, I expect, from you know, the raw material through to the finished product, where we can use all our know-how to influence texture, structure, and flavor. So you see that coming. I think obviously the cultured meat discussion is open, but it's getting sooner and sooner. I hear news that some countries are now opening up again for tastings. I think there's a vast amount of money being invested at the moment. It will grow fast, and I feel it's definitely going to be a significant player in the near, in the, let's say, 10-year horizon. But there's still some technological advances, and there's certainly some regulatory hurdles that need to go through, but it will definitely come. I think the one we tend not to talk about enough is insects. Insects are a perfect circularity example, and circular economy is going to become so important if we're to feed 10 billion people within the limits of the planet in 2050. So if you think about insects, you now have, if you have good agricultural waste, you can feed them to insects. They grow very efficiently. You have a good protein stream, lipid stream, chitin stream, and then the conversion for chickens, for fish, in terms of growth is really good. And of course, it's borrowing from nature, so it's very positive. So we're building fully industrial insect plants, and we see the demand for those increasing. And that drops the carbon footprint of the meat products. And that, of course, is a very fast way of having impact on climate change, because that's probably the biggest burden of the food system today.
Right. I'd just like to encourage, again, all the participants to put forward their questions as we are running out of time quickly. Now, maybe the next topic, Ian, I would like to focus on is sustainability. Could you please elaborate a little bit on this, what you are doing at Buhler, and perhaps also talk about net zero strategy?
Yeah, so look, we have two commitments that we drive. We have many, but let's say two main ones. I think the first one is how we look at our carbon footprint across our asset base, and how do we get to net zero. And we have an ambition to do this by 2030. Now, like all companies, we're busy building plans and action plans. We have a solid plan in place for our manufacturing base. We're understanding the consequences and the trade-offs of that plan that we have to take in terms of investments. And so we're pushing that very strongly. And then the second one, where we probably have the biggest impact, is the utilization of our products within our customers' value chains. And this is why we've set so much store. Well, we know we have the biggest impact. It's 1,000-fold higher. We've set so much store on this that our aim is to have solutions ready by 2025 that reduce waste, energy, and water consumption in our customers' value chains by 50%. Because this is where we can influence, and that's the biggest impact we have then on climate change. So we back our R&D spend, our 5% goes against that, is developing products and services that hit those targets, because we're absolutely convinced that this is the best way we help our customer base on their net zero journey. And if we can do that effectively, then this is the biggest impact we can have on climate change, but also on things like land use. And that land use then should be connected to how we look at biodiversity through the core business that we operate every day. And it mustn't be something next to what we do. It has to be exactly what we do. It's our core business that drives it.
I have one question from Katja Seidenschnur. A challenge and opportunity in sustainability. How do you contribute most to an accelerated change, and what else would be needed from your perspective? And secondly, can you share more around your Restore program? Katja Seidenschnur is
I know Katja well. We used to work together.
Nestle, yes.
Super. Hi, Katja. Biggest challenge. Yeah, that's a very welcome question. I think the biggest challenge is to quantify the impact. You know, we have teams quantifying the impact of our technologies in the value chains of our customers. First of all, you can estimate it with a reasonable degree of, let's say, hope. And I think we've done all of that. This enables us to understand avoided emissions versus other technology choices, increased yield, reduced waste, for example. But then you have to verify that your estimate is correct. And that has to be done in operations at a customer site. And that's what we're learning how to do, because until we can verify that, we're not 100% sure of what we say. Although I think moving forward to quantify, the most important thing is to start acting. So I think that's the biggest issue, and that comes to a digital discussion. The verification is much easier with connected lines. Digitalization can then be a key to us actually actively monitoring and reducing carbon footprint, and helping our customers to do that as well. Restore, the second question. So Restore is a role I have beyond Buhler. So Restore is a platform built coming out of the Crowther Lab at ETH Zurich, which is a platform that enables the global ecology movement and all the projects to not only put themselves onto the platform and be visible. So this enables us to monitor land use, reforestation, biodiversity across the world, but it also enables them, A, to get attention, and B, to have access to great advice and great skills. So I think the aim is to enable the ecologists to run their restoration projects better on a global level. So there's I guess 100,000 projects openly on this platform now, and it's building very, very fast. So if you want to know more, by all means, reach out bilaterally.
Ian, you mentioned digitalization. What does it actually mean? I mean, digital transformation at Buhler.
Yeah, I mean, digital transformation is one of these words that, or set of words that gets thrown out. That's by lazy CTOs, I guess. And I think what it means is an entire culture change across the company. It's not technology. I mean, technology has to work, but it's all about culture and people and adaptation. I mean, if I think of, the basis, make sure all your data is clean. Make sure you're on a standard ERP system across the whole company. Otherwise, you don't have a base of data to try and digitalize from. You have to review your processes. You have to review your business processes. You have to review all your design principles and your design software to make sure that everything you do in R&D feeds directly into the full 3D drawings of the plants. You have to make sure that you can change your thinking from capital goods into services. Because if you don't build a service platform off the back of all this digital data, your investment is pretty high for a low return. So you have to then switch your business model thinking. And there with Microsoft, we built a global IoT platform to connect customers and access that data. And then you need to build completely new skills around data science and analytics. So that's the journey we've been on. And then in the pandemic, it meant your employees must be able to work from home, and it must be seamless, and you must have high levels of security on your systems because cyber attacks are going through the roof. And so much of your work and your workforce is no longer contained within the environment that you want to control easily. So this whole digitalization touches every aspect of the company. So in the end, the key thing is people and culture, because if you don't get that right, then all the rest is an expensive investment.
We were talking about innovation, about sustainability, about the digital transformation. Now, as a CTO, what are the major challenges to manage and to lead and to accelerate and to push all these efforts? I mean, this sounds very, very complex indeed.
Look, I mean, obviously, it doesn't come down to one person. That would be a suicide mission for the company. I mean, the breadth of technology that we deal with, it's impossible for an individual to have a level of expertise in all of it. So I think the first thing is, I mean, my role is to make sure that we have extremely good people across the company who look after these things, and that they are fully aware of the changes that are necessary. They're fully aware of the trends, that we inspire change, because there's no point in having a small team doing things differently. One of the reasons we built our campus in the middle of our headquarters in Uzwil was we needed to change culture. If we put it outside in a traditional skunk works, you can do cool stuff, but you don't change the culture of your company. So you have to embed it in the company to transform the culture. I think that's the CTO's job, the way that we run it, because otherwise your innovation culture doesn't evolve. You must be extremely curious and encourage experiments. And that we build things like building mass challenge outside, not only is a great learning opportunity for us, but it's a provocation as well for our R&D teams to say, why are you looking outside at these young kids with their wild ideas? And then when they start engaging with them, then you see that they can create tremendous things together, and they quickly see the benefit because technical people are by nature curious. So I think that role around culture and guidance is very important. And then we pick a few big bets and we drive them centrally. Or things like digitalization, where you can only build one global platform because as a company, that's what you can afford. You must centralize and drive it. And that's where I think is important, is what do we centralize? What do we drive across the businesses and embed it? But a lot of it's culture change.
What single most important advice do you have for our audience to drive change in their companies?
Be persistent. Be persistent. I mean, repeat your messages. I think it's so difficult. You know, I mean, we're fortunate in a family-owned company. We have very flat structures. So it's very easy for me to align the board. So the board of directors and the executive board, we have very simple access to. We tend to do a top-down and a bottom-up simultaneously when we want to drive change. We have a youth organization in Buhler that we created a few years ago called Generation B. And their job is to hold us accountable to create the company they want to work for. So with sustainability, we had top-down from all the EB and the sustainability board, or the executive board. We had bottom-up from 800 Generation B people across the whole company, delivering fairly aligned messages with different words and different passion and localized to get the message out. And I think it's very much engaged broadly, top-down and bottom-up.
There is a question from Christian Göldi. What part do water and water quality have in the rivers in the Restore organization?
What part of the rivers? At the moment, we're currently looking only at land. Next level would be to look at water. But the challenge at the moment with biodiversity and land is occupying us fully.
Now we are running out of time. I would like to cover one last topic, leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us your personal view on leadership?
My personal view. Look, I think we have to inspire our teams to perform better together than they can individually, and to achieve things that will drive impact. I feel at the moment we need to get this link right between building businesses that drive impact, and people are beginning to believe and they're beginning to understand that these purpose-led companies that genuinely drive impact, where the sustainability mission is part of their DNA, are the ones that are going to succeed and they're going to survive longest. And the data is now beginning to support that. So I think in terms of leadership, it's set the pathway and the purpose and enable the people to perform well. And of course, I mean, that all sounds very nice, but you also need to make sure that the ones that don't pull their weight and the ones that don't buy in do have the opportunity to seek jobs that will suit them better elsewhere. So I think that's a little bit the direction.
How do you grow leaders, meaning your successor or your successors in top management?
So what we bring in a lot of young people. all the time. So we bring in a lot of interns, then we bring in management trainees, and then we have development programs through the company, and we watch them carefully. But we have a feel for who are the hot leaders at the time, and we then have a discussion every year around those, around what next moves should be. And this is throughout the this is the executive board level, and this is repeated at different levels through the company. And then we decide the development pathway that they need, whether they need external support, whether they need a job change or a new challenge, and how we help them develop to the max, whilst obviously doing things that are highly relevant for the company. So it's a very structured, I believe now, well thought through approach, because it used to be the responsibility of each leader, and it still is, but now we have great support in running that development program as well.
Well, my final question would be, what skills do you want if you hire a direct report of yours?
Well, I tell you what I don't want is somebody who waits to be told what to do. This for me is a catastrophe. I mean, obviously a solid educational background is good. I mean, let's take that as a given. They must have excellent values, because if we clash on values, then we're not going to work together. It's just not going to work. They must be courageous. You know, I need people with courage. I want people who bring energy to the room. I don't want people who suck energy out, because they're going to have to be emissaries, ambassadors for what we're doing. So they must be able to bring energy. With that energy has to come clarity. I mean, you have to be able to clearly and concisely express what it is they're trying to bring across. And I look for people who have some track record of leadership, and that could be in a sports team, that could be in an association, but I want them to have shown the willingness to step up and lead, because then they're taking responsibility.
Thank you very much, Ian. Time is up. We have to come to an end. First, I want to thank you very much for your brilliant insights. I think we all learned a lot from you about innovation, and particularly about transforming a company. I wish you and Buhler all the best and every success, and I hope you recover from Corona very, very quickly.
Thank you, Tony.
The next webinars will be with Eliana Zampronia. That will be actually on cultured foods. And in about 3 weeks from now, we have the pleasure to meet Drew Thompson. He will speak on Expect the Unexpected, geostrategy for businesses. I hope to see you there. Goodbye and take care.